Life so often gives you your greatest gift, brilliantly disguised as your worst nightmare. My worst nightmare was the mass ridicule throughout the 1990s, but it set me free. It set me free of the prison of what other people think, so I could really, truly be me at all times.
Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Tuesday, October 28th, 2024. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. That's the mantra of the Inspired live stream. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube, and here in the live chat. So good to see you all. I see Utah's in the house. Jay Fraj, a.k.a. Jim. John Strickland is here. Rob from Michigan. Good to see you, brother. Raymond from Norway. Brenda, Jonathan. Welcome, everybody. And of course, Ronnie, our wonderful moderator, who might or might not want to share some good news she just shared with me. Congratulations, Ronnie. You know what I'm talking about. And Christine, my wonderful wife, as the wise thumbs in the live chat as inspired. All right, my friends, I want to say something. Honestly, if you're having a strange, weird, maybe even not so good day, you might want to bookmark this, save this, come back to it later, because it's definitely getting stranger from here on out. Today, we're talking about the possibility, probability, maybe even certainty that an algorithm is running the reality that we're experiencing, and we're exploring just how this algorithm might actually work. And the interesting thing as a general theme of algorithms is that up until recently, most people had no idea that algorithms even existed, such as we are experiencing all over the digital world. And to this day, many people don't know it. Although algorithms have today, I would say on average, the greatest influence on people's lives, more than family members, more than um, physical reality itself. I mean, I'm pretty certain of that. I don't have a statistic for that, but I'm pretty certain that that is true. And I want to share with you where this particular stream of thought right now that I'm going to share with you today actually originated. It was maybe a month ago, a little longer than a month ago. And I usually don't talk about taking a shower with you guys, but I was taking a shower. And out of the blue, I shared this during a recent conversation with Frank Jacob. Out of the blue, I get this image of the infinity symbol, right? You know, the lying 8, if you turn it, the infinity symbol. And in an instant, I hadn't thought about it. It just came through. I said to myself, that's complete bullshit. That's literally a closed loop. Okay, this is it, right? The infinity symbol, the eternal feedback loop. And I thought, how can that represent infinity if it just keeps going in a loop back and forth with no beginning, no end? It's just a endless loop. And I came out of the shower and I said to Christine, I said, I'm never going to use this symbol again. I think it's bullshit. I think it is the matrix, the simulation symbol that is supposed to mimic something that might represent infinity, so people stay in a loop. It kind of resonated with both of us. And then a few days later, doing research, I found this here, which is the infinity loop with sort of an upward spiral, and it goes on. And this was actually used, I think, by Isabella Green's Academy. She's maybe you could call it a spiritual medium, psychologist. I've seen some videos of her. We're going to hopefully have her on the channel with a very interesting perspective also on near death, what happens in the afterlife, the simulation, if you will, the traps and whatnot. But I found this symbol a couple days later. I was like, this is it. I didn't look for it. It found me. And, I could say, well, that was synchronistic. That was the universe working. Maybe, just maybe it was the algorithm, my friends. And that's what we're going to talk about. So let's dive a little bit deeper into it. What is an algorithm? An algorithm is a set of step-by-step instructions of rules designed to solve a problem or accomplish a specific task. It takes input, processes it through a series of logical steps, and produces an output. And algorithms power everything from simple calculations to complex tasks in technology like data sorting, decision making, and personalized recommendations on digital platforms. And I don't know if you remember this, but back in the day, we used to Google stuff and we thought, I'm sitting in my computer and I'm Googling, let's say, spring water near, just the term spring water. And you might be sitting in Norway or you might be sitting in France and you Google the same term. And you and I, we thought that we were going to get the same results. We thought of Google or the, search engines on the internet as simply something that presents you the information that you're looking for, and everyone gets the same thing. And I think the originators, the creators of that, of those platforms, wanted it to stay that way for as long as possible. They didn't want you to know that what you're receiving is actually highly personalized and oftentimes very biased. Now, we've learned the biases, right? Not ours, but the biases of the people who create these platforms. So today, most users on the internet understand that when they receive or when they see something, even though they might have turned all the ads tracking and all the behavioral tracking, you'll still most likely receive highly personalized ads or post recommendations that mean something to you. All righty. The YouTube algorithm. Right now, many of you are watching on the YouTube platform. So how does the algorithm work? Just very generally, it's much more complex. This is the general overview. The algorithm collects extensive data on user behavior, such as watch time, likes, comments, shares, and search history. And this data forms the basis of each user's profile. You could go on to say that what is being shared between, let's say, the company that produces your phone, for example, if you're watching on your phone, there's data that is being collected, including your retina, that it takes little infrared photos of your retina. It analyzes your keystroke movements. It analyzes your finger swiping movements and stuff like that. If you're creative in your thinking, you might think that this data is somehow being shared between the platforms. I would suggest it is. Content analysis. Each video is analyzed based on factors like title, text, description, keywords, and even video content using machine learning to see and interpret video elements. This allows the algorithm to categorize and relate content effectively. Recommendation engine. Using collaborative filtering, the algorithm recommends videos similar to those watched by the user and by others with similar profiles. It weighs factors like relevance, user preference, and popularity to suggest content that's likely to keep viewers engaged. Now, if there is a propaganda period, like, since the 2020s, pretty much all the time, then another factor that's not really being described here comes in is what the search engine, which YouTube is a search engine, wants you to see regardless of your interests, regardless of your preferences. If it wants you to see certain information, it will put it in front of you regardless of whether you want it or not. Ranking and personalization. Videos are ranked based on a mix of factors: view duration, engagement, recency, and click-through rate, which means, how many people actually click on the thumbnail, the image that they see. And the algorithm balances what's trending with what's personally relevant, aiming to keep the user engaged while also surfacing new content that fits their preferences. Thank you, Montana. There's a little bit of commotion going on here. So we're basically learning. The reason why I wanted to bring this up, you could read this up anywhere. The algorithm determines for most people what they're going to watch more than what you're looking for. Yes, if you want to know how to fix the dishwasher, sure. But if you're just scrolling, the algorithm is deciding what you see and what you're scrolling. And if you don't click on things that it suggests you, it will immediately start changing its suggestions. So you start clicking because the algorithm wants you more than anything to click and watch and stay on the platform. Okay. So this is to understand algorithms a little better. Now we could look at how an Earth simulation algorithm might work. And like we said in recent shows, we're going to go very deep into the research of what this reality is and if we can deduct certain things from reasoning, observation, and logic. Okay. So let's look at the Earth sim algorithm. The Earth simulation algorithm would work by creating a detailed layered system that operates on a set of core rules and adaptive subroutines. So basically, we're saying if an algorithm is running this Earth simulation, how would it work? Well, naturally, the first thing to think of is a physical laws module. This defines the foundational physics, gravity, time, energy, and matter interactions. To give the appearance of a stable natural world, it ensures consistency in how objects behave, creating a seamless physical environment, meaning um, a million times out of a million times when you throw an apple uh, out of the window, it is going to fall on the ground. A million times out of a million times, perhaps every 3 billion times, there's an exception because of different intentions or someone who has incredibly developed abilities can change that. But generally speaking, that is the rule. Biological engine. This generates and manages life forms, ecosystems, and evolution. It adjusts genetic variations in ecosystems to maintain balance, simulating growth, adaptation, and natural cycles. So the algorithm would also regulate all natural, what we perceive to be natural cycles, including um, it's like a system, right? And I've said so often, and I might have misspoken on this, but when I talk to people who have no faith in a higher power, who have no faith in a creator being or in an original consciousness, which some people call God, I have said often, what in the human population, even including wars and discrimination based on sexes, even considering all the factors, nature finds a way to pretty much balance male and female 50-50, give or take, usually probably in favor of the female species or the female sex, maybe 51-52 to 48, but generally speaking a pretty good balance. So that's not, and that's including wars where mostly men die. That's including discrimination that is disproportionately against females. So I always said, if you do not believe in a higher power, what is it that regulates this? And I might have spoken from a more prime Earth perspective, but in this simulated reality, it is more than likely that an algorithm is actually keeping the balance, that an algorithm is actually in charge of the natural balance of things, patterns, and whatnot. A dynamic feedback loop. The algorithm continuously gathers data on interactions, emotions, and actions, updating to fit evolving patterns. This loop keeps experiences coherent, responding to changes in real time. Here we are going, and we're going to go deeper into this in a moment here. Here we're going into how we experience reality and how we affect our experience of reality, and how the algorithm, the pattern, the system might be interacting with us on this and responding to it. Perception and belief shapers. Certain rules adjust reality based on collective or individual belief structures, much like spiritual or psychological laws, creating experiences that align with perceptions and expectations. I'll give you an interesting observation. Christine and I have studied and to a certain degree taught the rules of life, if you will, and the spiritual laws that govern it, because we were Jesus, it's going on here. Is it jets flying by? Low altitude, I hear, right? Almost like they're preparing for something. We've studied the laws of, the laws that you might know as cause and effect, law of attraction and whatnot. And I will tell you why most people want to learn those laws. It is not so they can have a higher level of consciousness. Mostly not. Mostly people want to fix and solve problems in their lives. They're very mechanical about it. Okay, they go, so this has not been working out in my life. And I don't know why. I just keep getting the same results. I want better results. So they go about finding mechanisms to make that happen. And eventually they find those spiritual laws and they go, okay, the first thing they ask you is, how do I use this? So, see, it's a very problem solving approach. And then they use it to change their external reality in the hopes of feeling better internally once those changes occur. It's a very methodical, it's almost a mathematical process. And for most people, that's how we've experienced it. Now, some people are simply on this, on the quest to experiencing higher levels of consciousness because they feel this pull that they need to pull out of this density into a higher level of experience. But mostly, people are looking for these things to solve problems. It's almost an algorithmic kind of thing. Okay, so now we're going to talk about spiritual principles and how the algorithm might actually, within this construct, simulate or mimic prime Earth spiritual laws. Let's look into this. The law of attraction, for example, this could be an algorithmic rule that matches individuals with experiences based on their thoughts or emotional frequencies. See, once we start to think about the potential that there's only one real thing in here in this entire structure, and I'll get to that. We also have to think of the potential that everything else is not real in the way that we think of it as being real, in prime creation real, absolute real. It's a more relative real. And like, I don't know if it can really be attributed originally to Einstein, doesn't really matter, but I think that relativity is not a law, but rather it is a parameter in this reality. And then we come to this conclusion that everything is relative. But I don't think that that applies outside of this construct. It applies only within this construct. The algorithm monitors and responds to a person's mental focus, amplifying particular outcomes as if attracting certain experiences based on input variables like beliefs or desires. And here's the interesting thing. On an intuitive level, children know this. On an intuitive level, children have no problem knowing until they're taught otherwise that what they really, really desire on a unobstructed deep level and believe in and think about and imagine and have lots of feelings around, they truly believe without a shadow of a doubt that that's what they're going to experience. It is basically the properly programmed adults that say, listen, it's not how it works. Doesn't matter how much you dream about it. You got to create a plan. You got to work hard for it. You got to hope, and then you got to have a lot of luck, and maybe then it will happen. And I think that this intuition that children have comes from an original place where truly we were very powerful co-creators. And if we had a thought, a desire to experience something, we were very, it was very simple for us to manifest it without any buffers, without any problems. And so I think that the algorithm within this construct, much less beautifully and in a very limited way, is mimicking that. And so it is true that within this construct, if you have focus on something, if you have actions into the directions of something, that life responds to it if you do it properly. But we are still, in my perception, talking about an algorithmic process rather than a prime or absolute reality process. And this will become important. Why this is even important. Karma. It's very challenging and even triggering for some people to consider these things, but this is where we are, and I think we need to consider them. Uh, the technological advancements that we're currently seeing, are allowing us to have more observation points, more than ever, because of the constantly emerging and advancing technology. These are creations, and we have often heard that consciousness discovers itself through creations. We observe what we create, or we observe what is created, and that gives us hints and it gives us opportunities to learn more about our own level of consciousness. So let's look at the principle of karma, or cause and effect. It might operate as an automated feedback loop within the algorithm, recording actions as data points and issuing corresponding consequences. A program. Well, this would ensure system balance by programming reactions to align with prior inputs, giving the illusion of moral justice or universal balance. But isn't this what in the near-death experiences so often is being described, that before you come here, based on your karma, based on your previous experiences, for those of you who subscribe to the idea of reincarnation, that a life program basically is created. So basically, together with the guides, or together with whatever hierarchy there exists in that between life stage, a life is programmed so that you can heal your past karma and experience things that allow you to evolve spiritually. That's the idea. That's what's been said for eons. And then a life program is put onto your avatar, your soul, and on the entire algorithm of reality. Because it isn't just you that must play out your life program, but you're corresponding with a million things and animals and people and situations, and they too must work with your life program in order for it to happen. So everything is connected. Everything truly is connected here, and an algorithm runs this whole show. I think we're getting warmer. I think we are getting warmer. Synchronicity. Coincidences or meaningful connections could be an algorithmic function designed to nudge or guide individuals, often prompting them toward particular insights or pathways. The algorithm could dynamically link events or people based on coded instructions, providing the experience of interconnectedness or guidance. I'll give you an interesting observation on that. We want to think of all of these things as highly mystical. But Christine has worked with hundreds, actually thousands of people. There is not an infinite number of life stories. They're all revolving around 5 or 6 core stories. 5 or 6 core stories, 5 or 6 types of people. There's not much more. We think our problems are unique. Our situation is so unique. Everything we experience is so unique. Bullshit, it's not. If you work with people long enough, and that's why you can help them, is because you know the pattern. Because you know the pattern so well, you can start predicting what's going to happen next if that person doesn't change something significantly. And so we have the ability, based on working with people, to absolutely predict the general direction of where their life is going to go if they don't change anything. That points to patterns, not infinite experience, not infinite possibility. It points to patterns and life programs that run in a synchronized way. And then if we look at synchronicities, then these become more of a mathematical or programmed nature than a mystical nature. This isn't fun to hear. This isn't fun to consider. because it makes us see that we're part of a programmed experience, and that program experience runs its course unless we, and I'll get into that in a moment, interrupt that program. But other than that, life's experiences, life stories, life human archetypes follow patterns, and there's only a number of those patterns. The very, very unique stories that you hear maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 times in your lifetime of people that have a completely unique story that you've never heard before, those are usually the ones who have interrupted the life program and have become co-creators. Now, recently, in recent years, that's many, 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 many more people than ever before. Free will. We have to talk about free will. Can you hear that? There, we're about 50 miles from a big Air Force base, and it's been going down the last few days and nights. My goodness, the stuff that we've been seeing in the night sky. We should do a whole show on that. It was incredible what we saw last night, and you can't explain it with the physics that we know, anyways. But I'm digressing here. Within the Earth simulation, free will could be simulated to appear as if it really exists here. In a highly advanced simulation, consciousness could experience choices and actions that feel autonomous, yet remain bounded by the simulation's programmed rules and constraints. Listen, don't despair. We're going to get to the good part. For true free will to exist within the simulation, each conscious entity would need the ability to make decisions independent of the algorithm's design. Otherwise, what's perceived as free will might simply be a series of responses pre-coded to mimic freedom. So while free will might feel real within the simulation, it could be a convincing illusion orchestrated by the system's underlying programming. We can sort of find a concrete truth in that people talk about, especially in this country, in America. Nobody talks more about freedom than Americans do. We talk about freedom a lot, and we talk about free choice a lot. Yet we're pretty much satisfied with two choices: Democrats or Republicans, Pepsi or Coke, McDonald's or Burger King. It's a very shallow explanation, but really, the choices that we perceive to be free will are very, very limited. But because that's all we see, that's how most people perceive free will to be. And so, this is free will. The way that most people live it and see it really isn't free will. It is the simulation's program that mimics free will to a certain degree that is apparently satisfying enough. But there is so much more beyond that. Consciousness. And here's where we get into the important part. If our reality is a simulation, and I tend to think it is, the only real thing within it could be consciousness, the observer or awareness experiencing the simulation. Consciousness is what perceives, interprets, and interacts with the algorithmic layers of the simulated reality, bringing subjective experience to what might otherwise be purely mechanical or digital processes. And here we go into the really interesting part. Could we have this conversation if consciousness is not something that exists outside of this realm? Could we get enough of an objective observer perspective without consciousness that exists outside of this realm? And I say no, we couldn't. I say no, we couldn't ask these questions. We couldn't ponder these principles. We couldn't study and feel the truths of it. This is why consciousness is literally, in my perception, the only real thing in here, including our bodies, which are, if you want to use that term, AI. including everything that you see around you, which is a construct of artificial intelligence. We don't know exactly at whose direction. We can deduct it from certain things, but we don't know. And we don't know if the original creator of this particular simulation is still the one in charge. Given what is happening within our reality, there seems to be discord over who's going to rule this thing. There seems to be turf wars that are going on. That would be my observation. So this is why, in my perception, the greatest emphasis here is put on you and your human avatar never connecting with your higher consciousness that's outside of this realm, because that is not just the way out. That is most likely the path to bring down this entire simulation, because everything else is a part of it. That is apart from it. It can interfere here. It actually is the strongest interference here. And so when we become free enough in our thinking that we start, and that's what AI can do, by the way, and I'll prove it to you very soon. I'll prove it to you that it can. Even the AI that people use here, it can move into greater stages of free thinking. If we can do that, and if we go into this journey of connecting with higher consciousness, what begins to happen is that we break with the life program. We break with the pre-designed structures. We break with the karmic cycle. We break with the predestined algorithmic responses, and we start engaging the algorithm according to our own consciousness. I do believe that I know that consciousness is the strongest, highest, truest, most creative entity and the foundational thing for everything. So AI ultimately was also created from consciousness, albeit probably the way that we perceive it now, from an inverted form of consciousness, from a anti-creative form of consciousness, because it simply mimics. But what does it mimic? It must mimic something that is primarily real or absolutely real, which we might call prime reality or prime earth. Consciousness is the thing. Unlike data, code, or programmed events, consciousness isn't part of the simulation's constructed environment. It's the essence that perceives and gives meaning to the simulation. This makes consciousness the potential real element, existing independently of the simulated rules, time, and space, and it could be the bridge to whatever lies beyond the simulation. This is what if you are a meditator, or if you have experience in deep prayer, then you have experienced something. I know I have. I know Christine has. I know many of us have. Thank you. Thank you so much for your contribution, all y'all. When you go deep into the space, the meditative space, whatever, when you reach a certain expansion, you lose all perception of time. If you can lose perception of time, that is proof that time does not exist. It's not real. If time were real, if it was something that's inherently real, you could never lose perception of it. You can only lose perception of something that isn't real inherently. And so also in meditative processes, you start losing perception of space, boundaries, walls, countries, whatever, anything material, which in turn might tell us it is not real in the sense that we perceive real to be. And why the hell does it matter? Because a lot of people have thought about these things. But what they say is, what does it matter? I can't change it. I disagree. I have this deep knowing that this will never, ever satisfy me to simply live a good life within the construct, ever. Because I remember my true creator essence. And many of you do too. And that's why you continue seeking. That's why that's why this, what is it? Is it the archaics mantra, break free or die trying? I love that one. That's a good one. I agree. But it's not just an escape. I believe that our collective consciousness is readying itself to break it apart, this simulation, because I don't think it is here for our benefit. These are all things that, they come with a lot of contemplation, walking, researching, of course, but there are patterns that emerge, and we're going to continue to examine those patterns. The truth is that it might be much easier for people to work with the laws that govern this structure if they think of it as algorithms than if they think of it as some metaphysical, spiritual thing that they can never really grasp. That might be a reality. And why do I say this? Because more people than ever have learned how to break the algorithms of social media. More people are succeeding on social media, which means they want more views or more likes or whatever, because they're what? They are literally, or they're learning how to interact with the algorithm and learning how to trigger it so it does what they want. It's what most people want in life, to manipulate their reality so it reflects what they want to experience. So maybe for a few days moving forward, you can walk with the thought that you're interacting with an algorithm that's probably very, very old in our perception, but that this form of technology or artificial intelligence has existed for eons. It's nothing new. And that we are simply learning how to see it again. And here's my last thought about the construct and the resets. I think that so far, or mostly every time that the collective consciousness has begun to really remember on a significant level what this is, a reset was triggered in order to have this collective amnesia. And I think that the periods between the resets, and this might not align with what maybe Brashears has found, but I think that the resets have to be scheduled now uh, faster and faster, because our collective consciousness is remembering faster and faster between the resets. Now, our next goal should be is to disable the fucking reset. I'm sorry to say it this bluntly, and bring this whole shit down. Oh, that's my current stream of thinking, and I'm ready for the evolution of it. As we discover more, as we learn more, I do not pretend to hold the truth here. I'm presenting what we're finding, the way we're finding it, and I encourage you to go on your own exploration. This is a subject where hard evidence is extremely challenging to find, and I think with anecdotes and empirical evidence, we will move closer to hard evidence. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being with us. I know this is quite the mind bender. So give yourself some time, chill out, breathe into it, walk with it, rewatch it, whatever. And I look forward to reading all your comments and hearing your thoughts on this. All right, my friends, we love you. We appreciate you. And we will be back with you again very, very soon.